Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to race number 18 of the season 50 of the RTG Winston Cup Series. We are getting ready to go racing here today at the high banks of the 2.5-mile superspeedway known as Daytona. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Carlos Zimmerman. And Carlos, there always seems to be a couple of tracks that drivers circle on their schedule. A lot of your underdog drivers especially. This is one of them because when it comes to Daytona, you never know who's going to be the first one to that checkered flag.
You're absolutely right, Seth. This is a track that can eat you alive, but if you drive it the right way, you'll find yourself in victory lane. The draft is critical at a track like this, so this is going to be very, very interesting to watch these guys run around tonight.
70 laps of racing here this evening, and we have it on good authority. You're going to have to make at least 2 pit stops during the course of this race. The question is, will it be under green flag conditions or under caution? Because as we know, not only do we have 3-wide racing, we have possible underdog stories, we have strategy play out, but around every corner, whenever we come to Daytona or Talladega, there's always the chance of the dreaded big one.
The big one is always going to be lurking, especially at a track like this or even at Talladega. So these drivers are going to have to figure out where they want to settle in line for the opening part of this race. You don't have to worry about getting to the front once you get down to the final 10 laps, but that big one can strike at any time.
Jessica Shelton, our broadcast colleague, first start of the season for her, and she puts that Flatout Racing Network forward onto the pole position alongside of the points leader coming into tonight's race. That is Dante Ricky, Joe DeSpirito, Bob Seminara there in row 2. And if you guys tune in to the RTG Talladega Challenge on Thursday nights that we bring you, you'll notice a number of these paint schemes look very familiar. A lot of these names look very familiar. We know that they're able to get it done at Talladega Superspeedway. We'll have to see if they can do it here at Daytona. And Carlos, we were also told the fact that a lot of the fundamentals of Talladega that they run in that series are applying here today. That middle line is really the preferred lane. The low line is the shorter way around the track, but drivers are going to feel that tight sensation off of 2 and 4 in the long run, and that third groove is applicable if you can get enough numbers up there.
The third groove, yeah, you can get the numbers up there, but you got to be careful when you're heading through the turns because, this track has a lot of suck up as well. So you could easily get sucked into the wall if you get bumped in there the wrong way. But the preferred line tonight, like you said, middle groove would be the preferred line. Inside line can work as well, but that middle groove is where you want to be.
Also, another thing about Daytona that drivers talk about, the difference between it and Talladega. Daytona usually a lot more narrow, especially when you head through the tri-oval. Obviously, with Daytona, the start-finish line in the middle of the tri-oval as opposed to where it's positioned at Talladega Superspeedway. And I'm noticing even right here, you'll notice the 94 there of Shelton. Enter 2003 gives it away when drivers are clutching. She's clutching right now, so she's even trying to save fuel, and we haven't even taken the green flag.
That's the kind of thing I expect out of Jess from time to time is she's got a very good head on her shoulders, but regardless, she's going to be getting set in her first race to be on the pole. I'm sure it's nerve-wracking. Here we go, 70 laps at Daytona as the green flag's out.
Like both lanes went at the drop of the green. Shelton and Ricky side by side heading down into turn 1. Really, it's all going to depend on how the lines are formed up behind them as to which lane is going to move. Shelton edges out by about a half a car length going through turn 1. Now clears for the spot after some help from that 24, that DuPont Chevrolet of Joe DeSpirito.
I was watching DeSpirito there. Really gave a good shot to Jess in the corner. I thought he was going to get into her right rear quarter panel, but it looks like it didn't. Looks like a couple lines have already formed here on this first lap. The outside line has a little bit more numbers, but that inside line's looking pretty good, though, with just 5 cars.
Yeah, 5 cars against about 8, 9, maybe 10 cars in that outside line. Bob Seminara trying to help Dante Ricky. They got a little squirrely there off of 4. They're going to have to be careful about that because sometimes drivers off of the corner on the top side will get a little loose. They want to turn down the lower lane. Cars on the bottom lane want to push up, and they make contact. That could lead to a big wreck, especially if it happens up at the front of the field.
I'm very impressed with the wherewithal with some of these guys. Guys like the 11 of Mike Rogers, the 72 of Jim Glaude, and the 96 of Dave Robbins, amongst others, that dropped back further behind the field and gave themselves room to maybe take evasive action if they needed to. But these lines are starting to form up now as Riki has been able to get alongside Jess as they head to 3.
He has indeed back alongside for the lead, and we'll see if maybe that outside line can get the run here off of 4 and draw even. Maybe Ricky can get Shelton at the line, as looked like Seminara got a little out of shape. And to your point, those guys dropping back, this is CTS physics. So with the CTS physics, you mentioned it, tremendous suck up, the opportunity to drop back but be able to draft right back up to this lead pack, especially when they're racing double wide.
You gotta be, but the thing is, you can run 2 wide here at Daytona. That's no problem at all as the 77 dip below the inside, that solid yellow line. But then you gotta think, once you start getting 3 wide, when it gets down to the end of this race, that is when you're gonna see a lot of action happening, and I don't recommend it in the slightest.
No, not at all, but they will try it. I guarantee you of that. I mean, you can clearly see those painted white lines separating the low line from the middle line to the high line. They will use those as guidelines in the closing stages of this race. We will see them, I guarantee you, 3 wide, several rows deep in the closing stages of this race. But we've also been told the fuel window here tonight, somewhere between 19 to 21 laps. Very interesting that it's 70 laps here this evening, because with those 2 pit stops, you kind of have some choices on when you want to make those 2 pit stops. Some drivers might pit at lap 20, some then at lap 40, and then some at lap 60, but some others might try and short pit and maybe make those pit stops somewhere earlier on than others.
Yeah, you think the stops are going to be critical there. You mentioned the top 2 pit stops for these guys, but we're going to see how that plays out. I'm not exactly sure when they'd have to pit, Seth, if you could fill me in on that.
Yeah, that'd be somewhere, at least right now, if we remain green, we'd be seeing them hit pit road somewhere between laps 19 to 21. 21 is the stretch for those that might be able to save towards the rear of the field right now. I'll tell you something else that I've been noticing here. Jessica Shelton's leading this pack. She just exited turn 4 at 196 miles per hour. The pit road speed here is 55 miles per hour. That's going to be a task for all these drivers up in the lead pack, trying to get those cars down to pit road speed here at Daytona if we do have a round of green flag pit stops.
The key is pinging it in the chat is when you're going to pit. That allows other drivers to figure out when they are going to be coming in and that they can take action accordingly. If you don't do that, you're going to be in really big trouble with anyone that's behind you or even ahead of you, because you have to go down about you have to drop 140 miles an hour at least when coming to pit.
Shelton moved up to the top side, picked up Dante Ricky and Bob Seminari. Now you got the Melsons down there on the bottom. That's Steve being pushed by Dave. And that's also, I think, Bob Dixon right there behind them as well in the 143. Joe DeSpirito down there and Donnie Garrett as well. Coming up on a slower machine already. We're only 5.5 laps in, and they're about to catch that 7:10 of Manny D. Hopefully he gets out of the way as they are double wide all the way through. They were almost 3 wide mid-pack for a moment.
He's going to have to really keep it to the outside now that they're coming off at him at full speed. The 38 got way out of shape, but it looks like everyone should be able to settle out and get around the 710. Man, that 38 of Steve Melson was wicked loose off the corner, but it looks like they'll all avoid him.
Ron Luce after that is going to move into 4th, followed by Richard Martin in the 43. And then behind them, you got Doug Woolley, and then it's side by side. That's for 7th place. It's Robbie Nisus on the top side. He'll actually get around Steve Melson for that position. We drop back a little bit further in the field. Some of these guys that are just, as you said, riding. You got Stefan Martel back here, Benoit Plard, Bobby Farrell's back here as well, Jim Glaude. That's Chuck McClure in the 17, Mike Rogers in the 11. So, Glaude got a little loose there off that corner. I don't know if he and McClure may have made a little contact or not, but he saves it though. We're still green. Great save by that mellow yellow Ford.
On the report, the 710 of Manny D has brought it into the pits, and it looks like I don't know if his night's going to come to an end. It will.
Yikes, we nearly had a wreck right there in turn 1 as Jim Glaude went up into Mike Rogers. The two of them made a little contact. Want to give a shout out here to the driver running at the tail end of this pack in the 25th position, but Cy Jones, 1 month removed from having cancer surgery, and he's back in the race car here tonight. Obviously, as commentators, we're not supposed to be biased, but you can't hope for pole for somebody like that to be able to have a good run.
Yeah, just hanging out back here in 25th, just riding along with these guys. He's got the 96 of Dave Robbins as a drafting buddy, along with Jim Cloud. So I think he might be around. Is up at the front set there, passing another lap car in Mitch Bombard.
And yeah, that's tough break there for Mitch. Mitch is usually pretty pretty big force to be reckoned with. That was close call there. But usually he's a force to be reckoned with over in the Talladega Challenge, so he may have lost the draft early, and that's why he finds himself in this situation. One name that's conspicuously missing from the field, and that is Robert Bauckham. The last time that we broadcasted this series back at Michigan, Bauckham took the checkered flag there. So we will see. If a new name can pop up here. Another name that's not here is a guy that took the checkered flag last week in this series at Infineon, and that was Jeremy Jeffries. No caution. That was, I believe, Stefan Martel who saved it, and I can't tell who the other car was.
Andre Rayom in the 63.
Saved it, though. We're still green.
On my screen, out of nowhere, when they're heading through the short chute going into one, all I see is the Fram car swinging to the inside, and I was like, that's going to be trouble, but they kept it going, so good job on those drivers.
Yeah, I don't even think the 63 made any contact with the inside wall, which usually when you have an incident just out of the tri-oval, that is a miracle. Normally that car is directed straight down to the inside wall, and you're going to come away with some damage. We do actually have some in-car audio that we're able to hear into the 94 of our leader, Jessica Shelton, and we have just been told that they are around 10 laps left on fuel, so right around the mark that we were told, 19 to 21 laps for these guys. And up here at the front, they're getting single file, but they are double wide behind them. That is Joe DeSpirito up there on the top side. I believe that's Terry Bombard right behind him, and also the 020 of Michael Brown.
I saw those guys. They made that move to the outside, and now they're going to have some more friends here on the top side in the 77. I believe that's Donnie Garrett, and even more guys will join them as well, the 90 of Bernie Mobbs and the 17 of Chuck McClure. So that outside line's starting to form again, but it looks like it's falling off as they're not able to get to the outside of Dave Melson. Well, maybe.
Well, DeSpirito was the first multi... Oh, we got another spinner! Stefan Martel back there! Don't know if that'll bring out a caution or not.
The 11 also of Mike Rogers.
They're down on the apron. I don't think the caution's flying. No, it is not. I wondered if maybe it might because the 57 was sideways in the racing line, but they did not throw the caution for that.
Well, I guess RTG, the officials decided that they were going to just let them race, that they were down off the racing surface for the majority of them spinning, so that's why we're not under caution, but man, that was close.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had two incidents now, both of them occurring off of the tri-oval. I wonder what it is these drivers are dealing with that's causing those problems in that one particular area of the track.
I'm watching through here, making sure everyone gets through okay. Seth, for it being Jess's first race, I'm very impressed how she's been able to navigate both lines with the help of Dante Ricci as well. So she's done very well in the opening part of this race, but green flag pit stops are coming, so it won't last much longer, but showing she's got prowess in that 94 FRN car.
No, absolutely. I've raced with Jess for a long time, and there's another spin. Chuck McClure. That's Dave Melson as well, and another car was up into the air. I couldn't tell who it was because only saw the undercarriage of that machine. That will certainly be our first yellow of the day here on lap 13.
Chuck McClure and Mitch Bombard. The two I saw around. You have Cy Jones back here as well. Doesn't look like he has a lot of damage.
Might have been the 97 of Bombard who went up and into the catch fence there. There's the 13. We know he was involved. Dave Melson. Don't know if Steve Melson might have gotten a piece of it there in the 38 machine.
So the beneficiary of this is that 63 of Rayom that spun.
Absolutely.
He's going to be able to catch up.
And the 57 of Stefan Martel. I think also the 35 of Frank Rivard was going to be the next car to go a lap down, and this caution saved him as well as the leaders are waiting for the pace car to pick them up. Carlos, I'll let you cover if anybody comes to pit road here. I'm assuming probably everyone's going to come to pit road as we're going to look back at a replay of what happened there over in turn 3.
Right now, they're heading through 3 and 4. They have picked up the pace car. Jessica Shelton has. Another one this is going to benefit is the 11 car, as he had just went 1 lap down, so that should get him back on the lead lap, Mike Rogers.
Now, I'm not 100% certain. I probably should know this, but I know over in the Talladega Challenge, the ruling is that the first 2 cars 1 lap down get the free pass. I'm not sure if that's the case over here or not. We'll update you on that when we eventually get to the green flag as to whether we'll have 2 drivers get the lucky dog or just the 1.
Well, Seth, you're right. They're all coming down. Here they are.
No surprise there, as here's a look at the replay of what happened, and 3 wide. That's Dave Little up on the top, and looks like Dave Melson just pushed up going into 3, into Chuck McClure, and then he came down and got into, I believe that was the 45 of Bobby Farrell and the 87 of Benoit Plord, so they got a little contact. We're actually going to go back and look as well, because I believe the car that might have gone up and over was the 38 of Steve Melson.
I hate to interject here, but I think Jess just went gas and go.
That wouldn't surprise me. That's actually a strategy a lot of drivers will do at the super speedways. Normally, you don't necessarily need tires. So go in, get the fuel that you need, and then head out. I was going to bring up before we had that incident, if we ended up hitting a round of green flag pit stops, that more than likely we were going to see a lot of drivers just come into pit lane, not take any tires, just go with a fuel only stop.
Okay, well, that's news to me. So that's a bold move by Jessica Shelton, the driver making her debut tonight. I'm looking ahead here. I believe the 35, the 797, 13, and 50. Well, was the 54? No, I think he was in the lead pack, actually. So not everybody came down, Seth.
Yeah, 54 of Robbie Nices stayed out. Now, I'm assuming this is strategy. We might see him on pit road this time, because with the in-game yellows, you get about 2 to 3 laps of pacing. So you get the benefit of staying out, leading a lap, getting yourself a bonus point towards the championship, then coming to pit road and maybe being 1 to 2 laps better than everybody else on fuel. Looks like Dave Melson's going to come down pit road this time. Mitch Bombard, Cy Jones. There's Mike Rogers as well. No, the 54 is still staying out. This is very interesting strategy, because if we end up going to a long green flag run after this, he's going to be one of the few guys coming to pit road, and he'd be by himself. You need friends when you come to pit road to make sure you're not going to be stuck all by yourself losing the draft eventually after everything cycles around.
No, that you're absolutely right. The draft is your best friend at a track like this. Pace car light's still on, so we'll go around another time. But yeah, the 54, maybe he might be banking on the idea that we may have a little bit of a green flag run, maybe about 5, 6, 7 laps, and then we'll go green again, and then maybe everyone will come in to top the tanks off. So I think he's taking that risk. It's a hefty one. We'll see what happens.
I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on what we were just talking about as far as Shelton's choice to take fuel only. As I mentioned, usually the super speedways are not that tough on the tires. Really, the only time you have to really consider taking tires is if you come to pit road under green flag conditions and smoke those front tires trying to slow down for pit road. A reason why a lot of drivers prefer taking the fuel only strategy is you might end up running into your pit crew making a mistake, making a 4-tire stop. That costs you time, that costs you positions, and every position is very important when it comes to starting track position at a super speedway on a restart. So drivers decide to completely avoid that situation of maybe having a pit road problem, just take fuel only, and then they're out.
I'm still sitting here questioning on what is he doing now? He's starting to move past the pace car here. I don't know if he's trying to pick up maybe save fuel doing that. I don't know.
Well, he's still got one more opportunity to pit here if he so chooses. You see there the 97 of Mitch Bombard up alongside the pace car, so he would be the free pass machine here. He will go around the pace car when the lights go out, and here comes the 57 to pit road. So he just looks like was stretching it as far as he could here under the pace laps. He's going to come to pit road at 1 to green. That should turn the race lead back over to the 94 of Jessica Shelton. She'll restart alongside of new second place driver, and that's going to be Richard Martin in the 43. And it'll be Michael Brown, looks like in third, Terry Bombard fourth, Bob Seminary in fifth. And yes, I was correct. 2 free pass machines as Mike Rogers is going to go around and get the lucky dog as well. So the 97 and the 011 back on the lead lap here with this caution.
And with that happening, that will put everybody on the lead lap. Only one retiree. That was the 710 of Manny D. So still got 27 guys fighting for this one.
And Manny D
Well, 26 guys and a girl. Sorry.
Right. Manny D came into this race 36th in the point standings, so definitely not a threat for the championship, but certainly was hoping to finish a lot better here tonight at Daytona. Race leader gets lane preference, so Shelton's going to go up to the top side and have Terry Bombard as her pushing partner, if you will, on the outside line. Richard Martin will have Michael Brown down on the inside line. Interesting strategy here, but we saw Shelton, Dante Ricci, and also I believe it was Bob Seminara working the middle to high line very well there before that caution came out. So Shelton very comfortable, it seems, in that second and third groove.
I'm going to be very interested here how Jess takes this outside line here. Does she restart? She started this race on the inside, ran it pretty well, and then started shifting up to the mid group. Now she has to start from the outside line. It's going to be very interesting here for her to watch and not spin the tires on the restart. She is the control car, so she's got to be really smart here. And I think she should be able to navigate the lines the same way she did to open the race. But, you know, there's a lot of guys behind her that are hungry to get that lead, even though we're not quite halfway.
Yeah, it's also interesting, too, because going back to the broadcast we've done for the Talladega Challenge, on the restarts, it seems like the inside line is the one that really gets the jump, especially on the restart lap through 1 and 2. Shelton's going to be the one that controls when we go green here, when the green flag flies. Richard Martin has to make sure he doesn't beat her to the start-finish line, but if he's in any way alongside her when they get to 1 and 2, unless Bombard's able to get right to her back bumper, they may be in trouble. Looks like the 10's hanging back here, trying to make sure he times it to get a run to give Shelton a shove, and let's see if it works. He's going to try and pull right up to her bumper. Martin gets alongside, and well, I don't know if that push is going to do it.
They're going to be dead even when they come here into 1. It looks like Martin, no, Shelton's got half a car length advantage. Now the question is, can she make it stick down the back straightaway? But Martin hanging with her dead even as they head to the back straightaway.
Yeah, she stayed alongside of him, so now if that outside line can stay formed up, they might be able to make some speed down the back straightaway. Shelton is clear for the lead. Bombard about to maybe be clear for second. No, Martin back to the inside as Michael Brown gets a little scurry.
Sorry to cut you off, Joe Despirito. He got way to that left rear quarter panel. That is another thing these guys have to be careful on. Don't get into that left rear quarter panel. You do that, you're hooking the guy in front of you and possibly yourself around.
And every car model has a different hitbox when it comes to super speedways, so these drivers have to be aware of that. You don't want to get, as you said, too close to that left rear quarter panel, because if you hit that hitbox just wrong, that car in front of you is going to go around. And we already talked about it. If it happens up at the front of the field, it can be very difficult for a lot of these guys to maneuver their way through the wreck without getting involved and having some damage sustained. But that outside line is formulated now. They are moving to the front. Top 5 now clear with Shelton, Bombard, Despirito, Ricci, and I believe that's Bernie Mobbs, 5th in that outside line.
I mean, look at it. You speak of hitboxes. You got 2 Fords, a Chevy, and then I believe that's Pontiac, and then another Ford. So you got all the makes up here. So you got a thing. There's the car around. That's the 63 again.
And Chuck McClure back up into traffic, catches air, and we got some cars flipping onto turn 1. The 96.
The 11, who just got back his lap.
That's Dave Robbins in that number 96 machine. Chuck McClure was up and over, and there's the car that snapped out of shape there that started the whole thing. Andre Rieu, the second time we've seen him have a little bit of an issue coming out of the tri-oval today. There's the 17 of McClure. Caution is going to come out for the second time here today at Daytona. And we are not quite yet to the halfway point in this one. And we talked about pit strategy and when drivers would decide to come to pit road. If everybody came to pit road here under this caution period, then they would only have to make, I believe, maybe one more pit stop. before the end of this race. It'd be close, though. They'd have to save about 3 laps of fuel in order to be able to make it on one more pit stop after this.
Yeah, this caution didn't really come at a good time for a lot of these guys. We're about roughly 2/7 of the way through. So, yeah, the like you said, you pretty much nailed it down there. Yeah, this is still a two-stop race.
And you kind of get the feeling, too, that, we're speculating all this of possibly going green to the end. You know that probably when we get closer to the end of this race, we're going to see at least one more caution come out. As we're going to take a look here and see what happened off of the tri-oval here. Watch the 63. Oh, the 63 was up and into the wall coming out of the tri-oval. And then that's Dave Melson, the 13, gets into the back of him. Reum comes back down, clips Chuck McClure in the right rear quarter panel. Watch right here after the contact with Stefan Martel. Look how the back end comes up and into the air. 96 of Robbins goes up and over, begins barrel rolling, and then flips the 13 of Dave Melson up and into the catch fence, who then comes down on top of the hood of Mike Rogers. I mean, to be honest, I've never seen a car catch air like that here at Daytona.
You rarely see it, and the interesting thing is the 17 never flips. He just does a little bit of a blowover, and then he just lands it back on all fours. 96 went barrel rolling. 13 is really good friends with the catch fence now. So I've never seen. I'm right there with you. In all my years of running things in NR and broadcasting, I've never seen that.
It was hard to tell the 96 of Robbins flipping whether it was net code from the 17 going into the air hooking him, or if it was the hit into the passenger side door from Dave Melson that actually sent him up and over. We're going to take another camera angle look here, focused on the 13 of Melson.
While you're looking at that, again,
what a
only
shot
one car
right there.
stayed out. That's the 77 of Donnie Garrett. Everybody else came down, got fuel and tires.
Now, of course, I believe that this series runs on moderate damage. But even with moderate damage, especially with Melson going up into the catch fence, Robin flipping and barrel rolling up there on the top side of turn 1, even the 13 coming down onto the hood of Mike Rogers' FedEx Chevrolet, I'd be a little bit worried for these guys as far as the aerodynamics of their car here for the remainder of the race as to whether they're going to be up to speed or not. Some drivers are able to get away with a little bit of damage as long as they're still and up and into the draft, but a couple of these guys, I'd be a little bit worried on whether they're still going to be able to be contenders here for this win or not.
I'm looking back. I think really as the 143 actually has put the car behind the wall.
That would be Bob Dixon, who I don't think was involved in anything. And that's interesting, too, because that's 7th in the overall points coming into this race.
But it's looking like the 96, 17, and 13 are going to, and the 11 will continue on. But I know the 96 is definitely really damaged badly. Same with the 13, or not the 13, excuse me. Oh no, yeah, the 17.
I think the 13's got a lot of damage too, because he was the one up in the catch fence. But as long as the car's still running, normally that isn't bad strategy, even if your car is off the pace, because who knows? Here in these final 45 laps or so, we could have some more wrecks, more drivers retire out of the race. Every position's a point.
Well, as soon as I say that, Dave Melson has brought his car behind the wall. His night has come to an end. He'll finish unofficially in the 26th position.
A break there for him, as we've already had, I believe now, 4 drivers in the garage area here, and we're getting close to 25 laps into this race. Now, we have still not yet gotten the 1 to green signal, as it looks like Donnie Garrett is going to be choosing the outside line here for this restart. Shelton will be to the inside line. Then it'll be Joe DeSpirito, Dante Ricky, and Terry Bombard. That's going to be your top 5. 6th place going to be Ronald Lucet. Bob Salmonera in 7th. 8th going to be Michael Brown. 9th will be Jim Glaude, and Bernie Mobbs will complete the top 10. Richard Martin's going to be 11th. 12th place, I believe, is Dave Little. I don't think they've quite figured out who's in what line further back here. 13th going to be Bobby Farrell, 14th Doug Woolley, 15th Stefan Martel. 16th place will be Mitch Bombard, who just got back on the lead lap under the last caution. Then Chuck McClure follows him with Mike Rogers, Steve Melson, Dave Robbins, Benoit Plord, Frank Rivard. And then the rest of the field here is going to be Robbie Nisus, the 63 of Andre Rayum, and the 7 of Cy Jones. That's the cars that are still left running in this race, as it looks like we'll be getting the restart somewhere in the vicinity of about 46 laps to go.
Well, Donnie Garrett's rolling the dice here, Seth. I'm not exactly certain what he's thinking here, and probably doing what we thought the 54 was going to do, but now he's actually going to do it. It's going to be interesting to see.
Well, Donnie Garrett has spent most of this race just out in the latter half of the top 10. That's about mid-pack. Maybe feeling that track position is more important, stay ahead of the mayhem here, and maybe banking on the fact that we're going to see another caution maybe in the next 5 to 10 laps. So, if he's able to maybe stay out here, we go into a long enough run where a caution would draw everyone back to pit road, he may be able to make a bit of a net gain position-wise here, and also be ahead of the big one if it strikes again.
Jessica Shelton's going to be to his inside this time, and Jess has done really well on the inside, as we saw at the beginning of this race, but she's not the control car, so she's got to be very careful when they bring it around here to not pass the 77 before they get to the start-finish line.
An interesting road, too, there, because we saw Dante Ricky be a really good pusher with Shelton in the first stage of this race. Joe DeSpirito has been a good pusher as well, pushing some drivers up to the front, so both those cars are really going to be the ones that determine which line moves when we get into turn 1 here for this restart. Donnie Garrett choosing the top side. He'll have Dante Ricky with him along with Ronald Doucet, so he'll hope that they get formulated up there with him. Bottom side, you got Jessica Shelton with Joe DeSpirito and Terry Bombard. And looking at a couple of guys looming back there that you talked about running at the rear of the field early on in this race. They're now up here just outside of the top 10. That 72 of Jim Gloud is up here. Also Dave Little in the 083. So maybe feeling, all right, we've had these early wrecks. Now it's time to get ourselves up to the front of the field.
We're going to see what happens. Lap 25 about to go on the board. That'll give us 46 laps to go. Still a long way to go tonight, Seth. Donnie Garrett to get us back underway.
Yeah, interesting that we're going back green with 46 laps to go as well, because based on the mathematics we've been given for fuel, these drivers in one more pit stop would still be anywhere from 3 to 4 laps short of making it to the checkered flag. So, barring another caution coming out, could be very interesting strategy here in the conclusion of this race, as Shelton did not have the advantage there that Donnie Garrett did of being able to determine when they went, but because of the push from the 24 of DeSpirito, she's back out in front.
I don't know. She did beat the 77 to the line. I don't know if that's a penalty or not.
I'm not sure either, especially since the pass would have been on the inside line. I do know that with in-game yellows, if you pass a car to the inside 4 position before the start-finish line, it usually black flags you, but we'll wait and see what develops on that. Is here comes Donnie Garrett with a push from Dante Ricky. They're coming back on the outside line here.
But that outside line's getting a little bit squirrely there, as these guys, man, they are so close to each other. These front about 14, 15 cars, they are nose to tail on 2 different lines. Man, I don't know if Garrett's trying to side draft the 94 there. Not sure if that was even a thing back in the early 2000s, but man, he is trying to get all he can with trying to get down to the 94.
Yeah, should we tell the 77 side draft doesn't exist in Enter 2003? I don't think he cares. Maybe what he was also doing is trying to pin Shelton down, not allow her to have her car ride up through the corner to be able to get a little bit better of an exit out of turn 2. Seems to have worked, as that outside line is being pulled to the front. Garrett, I believe, well, I thought he was clear for the lead. Here comes Shelton battling back on the inside line. Doesn't seem like either line's able to gain advantage. And there goes Martel around the back of the pack. Way over he blows.
57 Circuit City Chevrolet comes to a screeching halt off the racing surface. Does not bring out a caution.
No caution. About the 4th incident we've seen here today coming off of the exit of the tri-oval.
we have really not seen any other place on this racetrack where a wreck has happened other than in the exiting the trioval,
We got a
and down in the
caution.
one, caution is out.
Yes, the 57 has spun it back up the racetrack.
We also got the
Stefan
54
Martel.
and the 7 and the 30, the 38 spun here in turns 3 and turn 3 on the exit of the backstretch.
Yeah, that was midway down the backstretch. I saw the skid marks from them, Robbie Nices, Steve Melson, and Cy Jones. Not sure which one brought out the caution, this three-car incident or the 57 spinning back up into turn 1, but regardless, caution flag flies yet again, and now this makes things interesting with the timing of this yellow because now, if everybody is able to come to pit road this time, they should be able to make it to the checkered flag on one more pit stop. But again, it would all come down to who's able to save and stretch it that maximum 21 laps.
I can confirm with you, it was the spinning 35 and the 38 that brought out the yellow, because when they were wrecking, the green flag was still out. So we can confirm that. But two separate incidents, one that didn't bring out the yellow and one that did.
We'll go back first and look at the incident involving Stefan Martel. Second car today that we've seen when it goes into reverse catches air under that spoiler. And that was a massive blowover. I mean, that car's rear end went so high into the air, I thought it was going to actually flip up onto its roof when it landed. But again, it's the big question of what is it about off the trioval that's causing the issue for these drivers? And it looks like right here, Stefan Martel just ran it a little bit wide. That was the 97 of Mitch Bombard, gets him in the left front, or I'm sorry, the left rear, right in front of Chuck McClure. It's the contact from McClure that sends the 57 up and into the air. Fortunately for Martel, he comes back down on all four wheels, but very abruptly and very hard. As you saw those tires bounce off the racing surface back up into the air. You see even the roof flaps engaged, but it still didn't keep the car really down on the racing surface. We're going to look ahead here. Up around this vicinity, there's Cy Jones in the 7, Frank Rivard the 35, Steve Melson in the 38, because this is where the incident off of turn 2 and on the back straightaway occurred. They're 3 wide. Cy Jones, that Sunoco machine in the middle, Rivard on the top side, Melson on the bottom. They're behind the slower machine of Mitch Bombard. And maybe a bump gone wrong here from the 35 to the 97. I gotta see. Well, there was contact barely there between the 7. Oh, yeah. Looks like maybe a little neck code there. The 7 getting into the left rear of the 35 of Rivard. He comes down, hooks the 38 of Melson. And then we'll see where the 54 of Robbie Nices comes into view. I don't know if he was involved or if he got slowed down to avoid these guys, but it looked like maybe a little bit of neck code there between the 7 and the 35.
That's the unfortunate thing with these online races. Net code is a factor, and while it may not be essentially the driver's fault, it's just technology. It still has to stink.
Absolutely. Different connections, and sometimes driver will warp. Different warps happen. We've seen the 020 of Michael Brown dealing with some blinking issues here this evening. That's one type of connection problem. Some other times, drivers will warp side to side, and usually it's those kind of wrecks that lead to the bumper grabs or the contact in the left rear like we saw right there on the back straightaway. As we got some drivers that are hitting pit road. I think some of these drivers stayed out, maybe lead a lap. Like Rogers in the 11, Robbie Nices the 54, 97 of Mitch Bombard all staying out an extra lap. That's going to turn the race lead back over to Jessica Shelton. The 77 of Donnie Garrett. Remember, we saw him roll the dice. He gained track position. He was the leader when that caution came out. Looks like he has now thrown that strategy out the window as he's on pit road now, and he's going to lose all the track position he gained. But he did lead some laps, and he did lead a lap to get a bonus point. So maybe that's what he was after.
Like you said earlier on, every point matters. So that must have been the mindset in the head of Donnie Garrett. So he'll fall further back. I think he's going to eventually settle out in 23rd. Only other retiree we can mention is the 96 has put that car behind the wall, and his night is over. He'll finish 25th.
After that wild barrel roll in turn one, tough break there for Robbins, Dave Robbins, who came into this race 30th in points. And I'm looking in terms of that 77 car of Donnie Garrett. Maybe all of this is his attempt for a race-winning strategy, because he's tied for 39th in the overall points coming to this one. So I think right now, a guy that's a regular over in the Talladega Challenge, he's just trying to maybe play a strategy outside the box of everybody else to try and pick up a W here today at Daytona.
We'll see.
Still waiting for the lights to go out atop the pace car here as Jessica Shelton and Joe DeSpirito will be your race leaders when we go back green. While we're waiting here under pacing for the pace car to eventually give us the 1 to green to go back racing, we're closing on the halfway point. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, and we'll be back here for the green at Daytona. You won't miss anything, though, as we go side by side. Welcome back here to Daytona International Speedway. This is race 18 of the season for the RTG Winston Cup Series. We are nearing the halfway point. Lap 32 of 70 is when the green flag comes back out. Seth Cole and Carlos Zimmerman bringing you the action here today as we go back green, working our third caution of the day. Jessica Shelton and Joe DeSpirito put us back under the green flag.
And another good jump, and it looks like the 020 of Brown did not get up to the back bumper of Jessica Shelton compared to the guys on the inside, so Jess may be slopping a little bit back here, something she may not be used to. We'll see as they head through 1 and 2.
A little gap there between Dante Ricky and Bob Seminara. We'll see if maybe she tries to slot down there. I'm a little surprised she didn't choose the inside line because she and Dante Ricky were working really good in the first few laps of this race. And he would have been her wingman should she have chosen the inside line on this restart. But now, Joe DeSpirito going to move up to the top side. Shelton now, instead of the clean air, she's going to be the pusher.
That's going to be another reason she's not really, or a thing that she's not really used to being a pusher. Pushing now the 24 there. I'm not sure if the 24 thought about sliding down in front of Dante Ricky, but it looks like he'll stay committed to that outside. So first time today we really had a different leader, and it's the 24 of Joe.
It is, and I'm a little worried there about that 020 of Michael Brown. You can see he's going a little side to side there. Usually that's a red flag for drivers in the lead. Pat car on the wall. That looked like it was Richard Martin. He saved it. I think it was Doug Woolley went up the track into him. I don't know if there was some bumper grab or what, but he went up into 43 of Richard Martin, who slammed the outside wall. Fortunately kept it straight. We're still green, but you can clearly see that right front damage, the sheet metal sticking out there on that STP Pontiac. Oh, look at that right side damage.
That's definitely not what he wanted to have happen tonight. Tough break for him. With how this racing goes, and we're just closing in on halfway, that might be time for him to get the damage repaired and get back up there. But for right now, not really the case.
Yeah, right now, everybody that's on track is on the lead lap. If he were to come to pit road, he would certainly lose at least one lap here. So I think he's just going to try and ride it out as, oh boy, I thought we nearly were going to have a wreck back there. Benoit Plord almost got hooked by Dave Little. Boy, these guys near the mid-pack area, they are having a little bit of difficulty with these hit boxes. We've nearly had a couple of cautions here in these last 2 laps.
Yeah, again, the hit boxes. I know it differs by manufacturer, but you still gotta know which manufacturer has the hit boxes. So if you hit it wrong, you're gonna send a guy around. So I don't know. These guys seemingly don't know how to handle it, but for the time being, the front guys have been able to handle it pretty well. They've been able to keep it decent so far as we're at halfway.
And all these drivers here mid-pack, with them all having these issues and checking up, it's actually taking away the forward progress of either the inside or the outside line, taking away their momentum. Inside line now is trying to move as Shelton crosses to the bottom. She picks up Dante Ricky. She's going to try and go for the lead on Despirito.
Interesting crossover move there by the 94. Whoa, boy! Ricky's a little out of shape, but they keep it going, and the line's going to lose a little momentum, but they're still going to be dead even as they head through the trioval.
Shelton tried to clear Joe Despirito off of 4, wasn't quite clear on him, moved back down, and almost a bumper grab there between herself and the 84, but Dante Ricky able to keep it straight. And that inside line, the momentum is back. They're pushing to the front with Shelton, Ricky, Seminara, Bernie Mobbs down there as well as the 45 of Bobby Farrell.
Man, these guys, they're just, Seth, I really feel like a wreck's brewing.
Yeah,
it's coming.
I'm with you. You feel the storm clouds are forming. You're just waiting for the lightning strike as, boy, those guys up there in that second line, you see the way some of them enter into the corner. Some of them go up a little bit higher. Some enter behind them a little bit lower. And you just keep looking at the space between the right front and the left rear of those cars to get you a little bit worried.
See here, they just continue. Oh, and a little bit of blinking from the 020, so that might be something to watch out for too. If you're the 10 right there, you know the blinking thing. That's another thing we really haven't seen much tonight. That can always spell trouble. Doesn't matter what sim you're in.
You have to wonder if maybe the admins will be asking Michael Brown to possibly drop back because that car disappears and then reappears. It may be inside of another car, and that usually leads to a big wreck, but for the moment, looks like it's settled out. It's been a little bit of side to side there for Michael Brown, a couple of blinks here and there, but apparently nothing so threatening that admins have requested him to drop to the back. He's still up there second in that outside line, and we saw an earlier incident there with Richard Martin, that damage still on the right side of his STB Pontiac. He's still up here in this lead pack, though. I don't know how up to speed he would be to be able to lead a pack to the front, but at least he's still in the draft.
Again, the draft rearing its ugly head again. I'm just looking through here. Just about everybody's hanging. Cy Jones is the tail end of this group, and everybody's hanging. No one's really trying to fall off. I guess that sense of urgency is happening, Seth, being beyond the halfway point.
There's a couple of guys here that are doing a great job after some early incidents. We have Mitch Bombard. He was involved in, I think it was the first caution of the day. Chuck McClure right there. We saw him go airborne in turn 1. The rear end of the car came up into the air for our second caution. There's the 38 of Steve Melson back there. He was involved in the last yellow, and a couple of other guys back here that have been involved in some stuff. How about that 63 of Rayum? He's still up here on the lead lap as well. Mike Rogers, who was a lap down earlier, he's still on the lead lap in this lead pack. Frank Rivard, Stefan Martel, all these guys have had some problems here today at Daytona. They're still up in this lead pack, have a shot at this win.
Oh, that outside line's getting a little squirrely there with the 72. And then some, trying to catch the number behind him. The 57 jumped out of line. That was scary.
Mitch Bombard looked like he got a little loose there off of 4. I don't think there was any contact. Just had a little bit of a handful there off the final corner. Inside line is now prevailing. Shelton has cleared Despirito for the lead. Dante Ricky trying to do the same as Seminara all over his back bumper, pushing him down the back straightaway. The 20 of Michael Brown continues to blink now and then. Another thing, too, that people might not understand is when a car actually blinks, for the time that they are gone, that is draft that is lost for that outside line. So it's actually hurting the outside line's momentum, even due to the fact that he's not actually wrecked anybody.
Bold move by the 99 of Doug Woolley. He was up on that outside line, and that takes a car out of that outside line's just the amount of drivers that were up there. He made a bold move to the inside, just tucking in behind, like a guy, lost his name, Chuck McClure, who has had some damage troubles today. So it's very interesting how you can get the damage repaired and then all of a sudden be back in the pack.
Now, we went back green, if I'm correct, on lap 31. So we're about halfway through this fuel run. Drivers would have to be on pit road somewhere around laps 50 to 52, I would assume. That would leave us right in the vicinity of about 18 laps to go, which means they should be able to make it on fuel on this upcoming one last pit stop.
Strategy is going to really come into play. It's going to be interesting how these guys are going to be able to, guys and gal are going to be able to try and figure it out and make the move that wins them the race. Do you go just fuel? Do you go 2 tires in fuel? Do you go 4 tires in fuel? Lots of factors.
See right here, we saw DeSpirito and Michael Brown, that outside line. They were falling back, but not falling back like a rock. They were just kind of fading back to around 3rd, 4th place. Now that outside line is formed back up. They're making a charge. And we've got some new players up here inside the top 10. The 72 of Jim Gloud's up here. The 87 of Benoit Plourde is up here as well. So all of a sudden, we're starting to see some new faces up here, and this is typical Daytona. Drivers that ride mid-pack to the rear of the field for the first half, all of a sudden you see them up there in the closing stages. That's why Daytona and Talladega are such exciting tracks where underdog stories can form.
I'm amazed with how the 24 of DeSpirito has been able to just maintain it on the outside. Guys are getting a little squirrely there as they were heading through 3 and 4. Looks like they keep it going, but my goodness, how are they not wrecked yet?
I'm not sure, but very impressive there for Michael Brown as well. I know we've been, focusing on the fact that he's side-to-side warping, but that's not an easy thing when you know that your quality is having some issues and you're in close proximity racing with drivers all around you. The fact that he's been able to keep his car where it is, not been warping into anybody, that's pretty impressive. And he's also been able to kind of help this outside line still continue to hold its ground.
I think it helps, too, that they just about have the same amount of cars on that outside line, and the inside line towards the back is not as organized as the front. So that's why this outside line's been able to maintain for so many laps. But with 27 to go, these laps just ticking away. And it's real. I really seriously think it's going to come down to this 94 and 24. The Riki, he's in contention. The 10, the 7, 12, and well, honestly, scratch that. Just about everybody that's still in this race has a shot to win. But the 94 and the 24 have shown that they are the best cars in the afternoon.
I could tell you, too, in the Talladega Challenge, pit road with green flag pit stops plays a huge factor. So it's all going to be about execution if these drivers have to make this final pit stop under green flag conditions. You're going to have to formulate alliances, figure out who's coming to pit road with you, and then everybody's got their own different braking zones to get down to 55 miles per hour. You got to make sure you don't run over somebody. Different drivers choose different lanes. Some drivers like to swing it wide towards the infield grass. Some drivers like to go right down against that inside wall for pit road entry.
And then you think about it, that can also spell a lot of trouble if someone does not know what the guy, or in the case for Jess, girl, is going to do. So they really have to just be on their toes and be smart, or else you're going to have about 7 or 8 wrecked race cars in pit lane.
And the other thing about that, too, we've seen some incidents off the exit of the trial, but they haven't brought out cautions. I guarantee you, any incidents that take place down there on the access road area going down to pit road entry or on pit road, they will not bring out a caution to save you.
Only if you get lucky. Only if you get lucky, if you're still on the racing surface. But then again, if you're on the racing surface, you're more than likely going to get clobbered by a couple cars that wouldn't pit.
Well, we saw them attempt 3 wide early in this race. Nobody really here on this run has attempted to go up to that third groove. I think everybody's just kind of settled into where they are. Drivers on the inside, drivers on the outside, racing 2 by 2 all the way through the field. Maybe just kind of riding it out until that pit stop.
Well, Seth, we're at lap 47. When are they going to be coming in? I'm sure you've touched on it, but I've zoned in and out every now and then. So
Based on the projections I've got on when we went back green, now I know that some of these drivers probably were saving some fuel under the pacing laps of the last caution. So I would say nobody's going to be able to make it any further than lap 53, but I'm looking around maybe laps 50 to 52 is when we're going to see these drivers probably be coming to pit road. But I say that for green flag conditions. We almost had a wreck up there at the front as Shelton kind of pushed up there almost into Despirito. Another couple of cars. Frank Rivard looked a little squirrely back there mid-pack. So we may not even get to that round of green flag pit stops.
and I think that Rivard machine is still wicked loose towards the back, Seth. So he is trying to just corral that machine and pray to God that it does not spin on him. But my goodness.
Ronald Lucet looked a little loose there, just going down the straightaway. That car almost had 2 tires down below the yellow line. Running right now unofficially in the 9th position, trying to take 8th away from Jim Gloud on the outside line. And Michael Brown, I don't know if that was on purpose, if he was trying to get a third lane going or not, quickly ducks back behind Joe Despirito in the 24.
Bunch of guys still jockeying 4 positions, trying to look up through here who we really haven't talked about today. Man, Ricky almost lost it.
Yikes, that was a close call. If Despirito was down the track maybe a half inch, that would have been contact between those two. Fortunately, Ricky hangs onto it, though. I mean, when people look at super speedways, they think, yeah, these guys, they just got to go out there, mash the throttle, turn left. You can clearly see these drivers are not out for a Sunday drive. These cars are dancing all around the racetrack, moving left and right, even on the straightaways.
I think Jessica going through 3 and 4 was thinking, should I move to the outside maybe with that 84 behind me? But maybe not. She stays packed, rides the inside.
Another thing, too, is we're going to be closing in on these pit stops. Guys like Despirito, Brown, Bombard, Gloud, those guys are all stuck up on the outside line. Normally, when you're going to come to pit road, you want to be down there against that against that yellow line. Make sure that you're going to safely be able to get onto pit road. I mean, these guys are kind of forced up there. If they come to pit road, they may be coming down pit road double wide, which that's usually not good. I think we got some cars pitting. You see some drivers jumping up to the top side. I think we got some drivers that are going to come to pit road right now.
Yeah, there is the leader. There's the 10.
And the 712 up and over. Bombard keeps it going.
Terry Bombard, what a save, but the 712 spun, but that was not a caution.
No,
we said it.
I thought probably that was down off the racing surface. There you saw the pace car, no lights on.
About to say, I was looking in the race chat. A lot of guys were pinging in saying that we're coming this time. That was the case, but man, what a save by the 10 of Terry Bombard to keep that car straight and then bring it into the pits, and you only lose maybe 5-6 spots.
Yeah, and he almost hit Dave Little when he got the car straightened there, as Bernie Mobbs and others, they're going to come to pit road this time. So we had it split up into 2 groups. Whoa, Robbie Nisus almost ran over Mitch Bombard there as he decides to stay out an extra lap.
I think black flag might be coming for Frank Rivard. He was about 10 over when he crossed the commitment line.
Now, to that point, I am going to just point out here that based off of most super speedways, they will actually average your pit road speed. So some drivers do what's called hot pitting. They'll come to pit road maybe about 10 miles per hour over, then back the car down 10 miles per hour under the pit road speed limit. It averages out and does not give you a black flag. It's a kind of a super speedway driver's trick that some drivers utilize.
Following the 24 of Joe Despirito, he would be the race leader when they come around. The 84 of Ricci second, Jessica Shelton third, Bobby Farrell would line up in the 4 spot. Here they come as they catch these guys. I'm looking at the top of the line. Who's coming out? It would be the 90 of Bernie Mobbs. Ooh, I think they'll be able to absorb in all together when they get up to full speed. But up here at Daytona, at this track, you can almost take you a full lap to get the full speed.
Absolutely, as you're going to see right here, the possible exchange for the lead. You got a group of 4 lined up nose to tail with Despirito, Ricky, Shelton, and Farrell. They're going to move first to fourth there. And we were watching the 54 of Robbie Nice's coming to pit road. I think he stretched it just a little too far. Looked like that 54 car ran out of fuel between 3 and 4. He had to coast it to pit road.
I'm not sure exactly why the 72, 35, and 90, the 72 and the 35 tried to pass the 90. I know the speed was probably carrying, and that's why they had to, but they should just link up here. These guys that are just hanging here, to link up and catch the 4 leaders to be able to match their speed.
Yeah, those 4 race leaders right now, being nose to tail as they are, they're just going to continue to pull away. You've got a group of 5 back here that could formulate with Jim Gloud, Frank Rivard, Bernie Mobbs, as well as Ronald Lucet and Chuck McClure. And a little ways back, you've got Mitch Bombard. Looks like maybe, I think Gloud actually did catch the whiff of the draft of those top 4, so we're about to have a pack of 9 here momentarily. But now everybody else from about 9th place on back, the only other shot they've got of maybe being in the hunt for this win is if a caution comes out here in these final 15 and a half laps.
Sorry, had to take a quick phone call real quick, but yeah, now the 72 has been able to catch here with the 35, so this pack's going to be getting a little bit bigger here.
Mentioned about Joe Despirito, was the first multi-time winner this season in the Talladega Challenge over in RTG. He's 39th in points coming into this race. He's not made many starts, so he's just out here trying to pick up a W at Daytona. Dante Ricky behind him, though, he'd like to be able to continue to grow his points lead. And, looking at the point standings coming into this race right now, the only guy that's up close to him currently in the field is Bernie Mobbs, currently running in the 7th position. He's 5th in points, 95 points back. So, with Terry Bombard running back there, Jeremy Jeffries not in tonight's race, Dave Melson back behind the wall. Looks like it's going to be a good points day, at least so far, for the 84 of Dante Ricky, as long as he can keep that car in one piece and finish where he's at.
Well, I'm sure he wouldn't want to finish second. I'm sure he would want a first place run, but, second place isn't bad in terms of points, so that could play out well for him. I've been looking here at the 62 and looking at his times. He's been able to try and catch the draft. It looks like he will be able to catch a whiff of the 90 of Bernie Mobbs' draft, so this pack may become an 8-car pack before long.
Now, in this league, there is only one overall champion, but they do split the season up into 2 segments. We are in segment 2, and as far as the segment 2 points are concerned, Ron Lucet is actually the points leader there. Chuck McClure 3 points back, Dave Melson 5 points back. So another driver that's trying to have a good run here to try and see if maybe he can get one step closer
Caution
to beat.
Is out.
Oh boy. And it comes out, closing in. We were just at 15 laps to go. It'll be 14 now as Despirito hits the line.
The 63 of Andre Rayome is 3rd wreck of the night. Robbie Nice is the 43 of Richard Martin, and the 17 of Chuck McClure.
Wow, that 63 has been in 3 of the 4 cautions we have had here this evening. Chuck McClure, this is the 2nd caution that he's been in. And Richard Martin, who was back here probably due to having to get the damage repaired that he sustained when we went back green on the last restart. He gets caught up in this one as well. And Robbie Nices was back here because he ran out of fuel through 3 and 4 during the round of green flag pit stops. And this is not what those top 9 wanted to see, because that now brings about another 11, 12 cars up here into the conversation to race it out here in these final 10 laps or so for this victory.
And that means it's going to be bringing the proposition of the big one back into the light.
Yeah. What's the old saying? Cautions breed cautions, especially when you get down to the closing stages of a super speedway race.
It'd be interesting to see here whether these guys, as you'll probably check back for a replay of what happened, it's interesting to see what these guys are going to do with pit stops. It looks like everyone's going to probably maybe come down and top off. I thought the 24 might make a move. Doesn't look like it.
And look at the replay here and watch closely the black car in front. That's the 38 of Steve Melson. He moves up the track here, and then I think he tries to move back down in front of Donnie Garrett. He's not clear as Garrett got a good push from behind by Doug Woolley. And Garrett's going to spin that 38 car around. Garrett's going to go up and get the outside wall himself. Oh, wow. Hard impact there for both the 38 and the 77. Then Chuck McClure gets into the back of Andre Rieume. That sends him and the 17 up into the outside wall. And then further back as all this is going on, drivers trying to check up for the incident. I think Richard Martin in the 43, well, this is actually way back, so we'll actually wait. I think he gets a little bit of help going around into turn one. There's Rieume's car coming back down onto the apron. We know that Robbie Nisus was involved as well. See what happens here with the 54, because I thought he got a piece of the incident. Maybe he was just slow going through. Oh, yeah, he was slow going through, and then Richard Martin was trying to slow down for him. And to your point, Bob Seminara gets into the 43. Oh, and then Seminara clobbers Chuck McClure down there on the apron. So, oh, and then some contact as well for Michael Brown in the 020. So, boy, a lot of these guys involved in this incident, you can go back to things that happened on that last green flag run that put them back there. Bob Seminara was barrel rolling after he got hit coming to pit road. Robbie Nisus ran out of fuel. Richard Martin had that contact on that last green flag run. So a lot of these guys being towards the back of the pack was really what caused them to be back here and get involved in this wreck.
Well, Seth, let me channel in my inner Larry Mack. The trends of the race.
Oh, boy.
We're going to be inside 10 laps to go. I'm thinking that's usually the average of when you'll see about a couple of cautions. So, mind you, this is in-race cautions.
Right.
So if we have a caution within at least 4 laps to go, this race may very well be done.
Exactly. You are exactly right. With the in-game yellows, pacing laps count. And if we get to the completion of, I believe, lap 66, we go on to lap 67, any flag that comes out after that will end the race, whether it be a caution or a white flag. And I do believe that when we get to that zone, that all cautions are raced back. It is not frozen field. And in most of these cautions early on, it actually is frozen field. They then keep their position, racing back, holding the positions they're in, and then pick up the pace car. But now we're entering into the zone where any caution, it would be raced back to the start-finish line.
That's going to play into even a bigger factor of how these drivers make decisions going through the rest of this race. I'm going to try and do the math here. The pace car lights are still on. I think we're going to go green with 10 to go.
It'll be Joe DeSpirito that will lead us to that green flag. Dante Ricky to the outside in second. Jessica Shelton third. Bobby Farrell fourth. Jim Glaude in fifth. Sixth is going to be Frank Rivard, so a great comeback for him. Bernie Mobbs will restart seventh. Ron Lucet in eighth. Doug Woolley ninth. And looks like Benoit Plord is going to complete the top 10. Closing on 10 laps to go here, Chris. You've had about 60 laps to observe these drivers. I mean, who are you looking at here to probably be able to bring this checkered flag home?
I'm really impressed, with this top 3. Joe DeSpirito, Dante Ricky, Jessica Shelton. But I have my eye on someone who's just been riding around in 4th, and that's Bobby Farrell. He's just been riding around, staying quiet, riding behind this top 3. If you want a logical pick, you go with one of the top 3. But watch Bobby Farrell to maybe sneak in here tonight and maybe possibly come out with a victory starting 4th, second car on the outside.
Sometimes it's the quiet ones you have to watch out for because they may not have played their hand yet on what they're capable of doing. I would also keep an eye a little bit further back there on Ronald Lucet in that 62 machine. He's going to be restarting in the 8th position, but he's got a goal right now of trying to maintain his segment 2 points lead. And I've raced with him before, very aggressive racer, especially when it comes down to the closing stages, makes some moves that cuts him a few positions closer to the front. So we'll see what he's able to do here. And a lot of these guys, I'm very familiar with their racing style, observing them over in the Talladega Challenge. And I can guarantee you, with the top 10 we've got right now, every single one of these guys has taken part in that Talladega Challenge. So we're in for a show here in these final 10 laps.
What's Kevin Harvick's nickname? The closer?
The closer.
That perfectly can describe the 45 and the 62. Quiet through majority of the race, but then closes the deal when it matters most. Watch those two down here in these final 10 laps.
And of course, you can guarantee that the aggressiveness is going to ramp up when we get to that target lap we were talking about, lap 66 going on to 67, because everybody's going to realize then that pretty much that's going to be the battle for the win if a caution comes out.
You know, you talked about the guy in 8th and the 4th, but you can't count out the top 3, Despirito, Ricci, and Shelton. They've been the class of the field tonight. Shelton dominating early on. Ricci's been up in 2nd for I don't know how long, and then Despirito has been dominating the back half of this race. So watch these guys to just be aggressive, and then if no caution comes out in those final few laps, a lot of mirror driving is about to happen.
Absolutely. It's going to be all about controlling the draft and seeing which line is getting the run for these drivers up here at the front. And so far, they've been doing a tremendous job of it. We've seen Despirito and Ricci and Shelton. They've been side by side, one driver on the inside, one driver on the outside, pretty much since the drop of the green flag to start this thing. But here we go. 10 laps to go at Daytona. Have we seen our last caution? We're about to find out.
Ooh, a little bit of a log jam there on the inside line. The 24 did not get as good of a jump as the 84, and the 94, got right up to the bumper, and Ricci slides down in front of the 24 to take the top spot.
Bobby Farrell is a lonely man right now, as it's about a car length and a half back to his help and Frank Rivard. Shelton's going to move into the 3rd position. Jim Glaude trying to move into 4th. Bernie Mobbs right there as well, trying to crack the top 5. And now Rivard leaves Farrell out. He goes to the bottom, but here comes the top side. Joe Despirito, Jessica Shelton going to leave Dante Ricci on the bottom.
Whoa, man, that mellow yellow car wicked loose through 3, heading down into 3, but keeps it going. That inside line not organized at all. 35's on the apron, but everybody now, that outside line is starting to form, and it's already formed.
Yeah, that inside line broke up all the way from 3 over to the exit of turn 4. Despirito to the lead. Shelton to 2nd. Mobb's going to move into 3rd. Now Bobby Farrell clear for 4th. Battle's going to be for 5th between Ronald Lucet and Dante Ricci. Give it to Lucet off of turn 2.
I think the really big loser out of all that was Dante Ricci. He has fallen the farthest that he has fallen tonight under the green flag, and it looks like he's going to have to settle in line behind the 87. So he's going to be, I'm trying to count him here, 8th.
We've seen here tonight that, you can work your way up to the front, but when you're the 2nd, 3rd, 4th car in a line that's moving to the front, it takes a little bit longer for you to be able to get up into that clean air. As right now you got your top 7, now 8, now 9, maybe back to the top 11, all single file for the moment. These drivers may be racing to that target lap of the completion of 66. How about the 97 of Mitch Bombard? What a great job for him, involved in the first caution, but he's back up here now, the highest he's run all day in that 6th position.
Give a call also to the 57 of Stephen Martel. He was almost upside down on the exit of the tribal. He's in the top 10 now.
Yeah, that rear end was pointing to a cloud just off of turn 1, about the midway point of this race. And now he's up here looking to crack into the top 10 as he and Jim Glaude going to go side by side for that 9th position. But up at the front, it's all the question of who makes the move and who goes with that driver that makes the move. Spinner! I don't think we're going to get a caution, though.
The 35 of Frank Rivard.
No caution as Rivard off of the tri-oval loops the 35 car around. Still green.
I'll watch him here, see how he brings it back onto the racing surface.
Like outside line forming here. Dante Ricci, Jim Glaude, and Terry Bombard trying to make something happen around the 7th position. That's where the 84 currently is at. These guys start to make some forward progress. You'll see some other drivers maybe jump up there as well. But right now, the top 6 still single file. We're closing in on that window. Lap 64 complete, about 2 laps away from that point of no return where a caution would end this race.
Double file just inside the top 10. Top 6 breaking away. Double file 2 rows further back. Look at the 87 here. Benoit Plord. We haven't really talked about him tonight. He's up into the 7th spot and now clears the Riki machine.
Very difficult to miss that bright yellow and green John Deere car, as he's going to hold off Ricky, and he's going to keep that 7th position. Sorry, make that 8th position. Ricky was trying to make something happen on that outside line, but there were only 3 drivers up there. They couldn't do anything, and so Ricky now slots back into the 8th spot behind Benoit Plord. Up at the front, though, it's a question of who's going to step out of line, who's brave enough to make the move. We are closing in on that lap. Lap 66 goes on the board. Next time by, if a caution were to come out, they'd race back to the line. The race would be over. It'd be the proverbial checkered flag. So, Carlos, how long do you wait? Do you maybe make the move once we hit that buffer zone, or do you wait till the last lap?
You make that move now. If it fails for you, you can maybe try to rebound and get through the wreck that happens in front of you, because it'll more likely happen in front of you. You make the move now. If these guys wait too long, it may be too late, but with how everyone's single file, it may not hurt to wait till that last lap.
Joe DeSpirito, as you mentioned, whoever's the race leader, going to have to do a lot of mirror driving. We've seen drivers make some really aggressive moves to the bottom, and here we go.
Caution is out.
Oh, boy. The caution came out on lap 66. It didn't come out on 67. They just took 67. This race may be over, but we could get a 1-lap shootout. I'm not sure.
I don't know, Seth. I think you think about it. You have 2 laps of pitting. I get you to lap 69. I think this may be over, and Joe DeSpirito's your winner.
Well, we have no lap machines out there on the track, so that extra lap of caution you would normally have there would not come into play. Don't know. Donnie Garrett's back here in the 77. He may have been the reason for this caution coming out. Hard to tell if that damage was from the earlier incidents he was involved in or not. We'll go back and take a look at a replay.
I just don't know. I think they come here, they'll take the line, they'll hit the line, 3 laps to go. I'm thinking this might be done.
Smoke was in the front straightaway. Oh, and it was actually 43 of Richard Martin. And this is interesting because Richard Martin, you remember under the last caution, he got spun around by Bob Seminara. Well, going into turns 1 and 2, it's actually going to be Richard Martin spinning around the 712. So a little interesting there. Doesn't look like it's intentional. Looks like it may just be a hitbox warp here, but we'll follow it off of turn 4 and see what happens here as Seminara gets a little loose there after the bump. Tries to come back up in front of the 43, and yeah, looks like just a hitbox problem. Little bumper grab there, puts the 43 up into the wall. And I think you're going to see in just a moment, yeah, the 7 of Cy Jones down into the grass. That spin for the 43 is what brings out the caution. The leaders had already crossed the start-finish line to complete lap 65. I'm sorry, to complete lap 66, rather. We'll have to see. This race may be over. We'll have to wait and see here. If it is over, then Joe DeSpirito is the winner here tonight. Shelton would finish 2nd, Bernie Mobbs 3rd, Bobby Farrell 4th, and Ronald Lucet would bring it home with a top 5. All really depends on that pace car. We're waiting on that pace car to see what happens. Now, I don't believe the lights will go out this time, but if they were to go out the next time... Well, actually, no. No, I think you're right. Yeah, this race is going to end under yellow. If the caution had come out a lap earlier, we'd have had the 1-lap shootout. But
yes, that would be correct.
Yep, so DeSpirito, who came into this race, as we mentioned, 39th in the overall standings. His goal today was just to come here to Daytona and go to victory lane. Looks like he is going to actually complete that goal. I've just heard from the admin that they are thinking maybe there might be a 1 to green. They're waiting the same way we are to see if the lights go out atop the pace car, but I have a feeling it probably won't.
And they don't.
Nope. So that's going to be it. Because the next time around, even if they went out, it would be the white flag lap. So it wouldn't really count for anything. They would still be pacing back to the start-finish line. But impressive run here today for Joe DeSpirito, bringing it home with the victory. Jessica Shelton, in only her first start of the season, started from the pole position, is going to finish second. And we talked about Dante Ricky dropping back there. It's going to be a pretty good points day for Bernie Mobbs to be able to gain some points on Dante Ricky, finishing in the third position, plus the fact he's in the hunt there for maybe getting up there to the top of the leaderboard in the segment 2 point standings. Ronald Lucet, the points leader, they're going to finish in fifth, but a couple of guys that struggled today, like Chuck McClure and Dave Melson, might move that 90 machine up to second in the points for the segment 2 standings.
Man of the hour is going to be that 24 of Joe DeSpirito. What a run he had. Like I said, he dominated the back half of this race. Really didn't relinquish the lead, and it's going to pay off for him with that caution coming out at such a timely moment. And he'll pick up a W here today at the one of the what do they call it? The World Center of Racing.
And Joe DeSpirito, as I mentioned, he is a really good super speedway racer. He's very good at picking his moments to be able to move to the front. We've seen it over there in the Talladega Challenge, and you saw when he made the move there for the race lead, when he jumped to the top side. Shelton jumped up there with him. Bobby Farrell jumped up there with him. When you have a car that's as good as that and you have the experience at a super speedway like that, you're going to have a lot of people willing to work with you.
It's going to be the plus for him as the pace car will bring him around and they'll take the white flag.
We drop back and look a little bit further here of drivers that are just going to finish inside the top 10. We, again, a tremendous run for Mitch Bombard there in that 97. He's going to bring it home in sixth. Benoit Plord, who spent his day mostly at the back, is going to bring it home in seventh. Dante Ricky, who was up there in the top three pretty much all day, he'll bring it home in eighth. Doug Woolley, good run there in ninth. And how about a guy that started this race in the first 10 laps, -1 to the leaders, Mike Rogers? He's going to bring it home in the top 10 in that FedEx machine.
It's an absolute, I would call that a very good rebound day to be able to squeak out a top 10 and finish with how the day he had, and to finish 10th, it's very impressive.
Like everybody that's going to finish this race will be finishing on the lead lap as well. And we had about 4 or 5 drivers that were a lap down there in the first half of this race. The cautions we had put them back on the lead lap, and they've been able to stay there.
That's unheard of for Daytona to have everybody on the lead lap.
Really is. Yes, we have had drivers that retired out of the race, but for all the drivers that are still on track, to your point, to have them all on the lead lap is really a rarity. You normally have some drivers that are running 1 or 2 laps down off of the pace.
You think about that, if this race went all the way green to the end, which I didn't expect, but about everybody from first to 23rd, if they weren't off the pace, they had a shot to win it.
And we've seen a little bit of everything here today as well. We got to see a round of green flag pit stops. We've had drivers' cars going airborne. We've had some barrel rolls. A little bit of everything. Typical Daytona, really, if you think about it. Typical super speedway. But, it would have been great to obviously see what would have happened if this race had finished under the green flag. But a lot of times when you get into the closing stages of the race, drivers are going to be aggressive. Mistakes are going to be made. Cautions are going to fly. And, of course, with this being in-game yellows, race is going to, unfortunately, end under the caution flag as the white flag was displayed the last time around. This time, the flagman has the checkered flag in hand as Joe DeSpirito in that Jeff Gordon-colored number 24 Chevrolet. He's going to bring it across the line, and he's going to take the checkered flag here tonight at the Daytona International Speedway.
Good win for that number 24, bringing the DuPont flame colors to victory lane. Then again, another impressive run out of the girl that debuts tonight, Jessica Shelton, in our FRN car, Ford Taurus. Great run for her. And then, the 90 was able to, Bernie Mobbs brings it home third. That's also an impressive run for that man.
Absolutely. As Like Joe DeSpirito now has to get that car back up through the gears to be able to make it back to the start finish line to be able to do his burnouts. And it's like we got a couple of people maybe coming around to give some congratulatory bumps here. Chuck McClure, Michael Brown going on by, Benoit Plourde as well. We'll be talking with Joe DeSpirito in just a moment as he's going to come down here in front of these Daytona fans and burn it down. I believe this is DeSpirito's first win of the season as well. So great job by him as he'll bring that DuPont Chevrolet to a halt right at the start finish line and will begin his celebration here, winning the 18th race of the season in the RTG Winston Cup Series. As he burns it down, let's take a look here at the full finisher results from today's race. They've been scrolling across the top of your screen, but we'll look at the list here as well. We basically ran down the top 10. Terry Bombard going to bring it home with a 11th place run. Chuck McClure, that's another guy that was up and into the air over in turn 1. He finishes 12th. Steve Melson, he was involved in 2 of our cautions. He'll bring it home in 13th. Michael Brown there in 14th. Jim Glaude going to bring it home in the 15th position. Rest of your top 20, Stefan Martel, Andre Rayum, who I think spun out at least 3 times in this race and was involved in 4 incidents during the course of this race. He's going to still finish top 20 and 17th. Bob Seminara, after his flip down towards pit road entry, he'll finish in 18th. Dave Little in 19th. And how about Cy Jones? We talked about him 1 month removed from cancer surgery. Finishes that car on the lead lap in the 20th position. Rest of the cars to finish on the lead lap and finish this race: Robbie Nices, Dominique Garrett, and Frank Rivard. And you can see the drivers that did not make it to the checkered flag here today.
All in all, a really, really exciting race to watch. And then just you had your fair amount of wrecks, but then you had your really good green flag racing, especially right there at the end, because the wreck that happened didn't happen. We didn't see the big one also.
No, we didn't. I mean, I think the biggest wreck we saw was maybe about 4 cars total a couple of times, but really we didn't see the typical 8 to 12 car big ones that we're used to seeing at Daytona. And I think a lot of that also is can be attributed to the drivers and their ability to be able to avoid wrecks when they occurred. We are waiting here to get some interviews with our top 3. And I believe we are about to get our 3rd place finisher, Bernie Mobbs, in here. Bernie 4th in the segment 2 point standings and 5th in the overall standings, 95 points back from the championship. And we have him here, Bernie Mobbs, bringing it home 3rd place here today at Talladega Superspeedway. And obviously, Bernie, we saw that, when you're the car that's pushing, it's a little bit difficult to be able to make moves for the lead. But did you have any game plan formulated to be able to try and move from 3rd up to 1st if we had been able to go green to the checkers?
Yeah, I was planning on making a move somewhere on probably 2 laps to go, give it a shot, and hope I had some help from behind.
Well, obviously, we saw that your strategy, at least early on, was to kind of run around the mid-pack area. We then saw you move up to the front in the closing stages, but we also saw that round of green flag pit stops in the middle of that last run. That was kind of crazy. What was going on from your point of view there?
I missed most of the action, if you know what I mean, and I ended up a pretty decent pit stop, but not sure what happened back behind me.
We look at your situation coming to this race as far as battling for the championship. There were a couple of guys that either had issues today or there was Jeremy Jeffries who didn't show up. So you're going to be able to close that points gap up a little bit there on Dante Ricky. Here at Daytona, what was the strategy going in? Because we know that usually it's a wild card race. Was it just to survive or was it to try and go out there, try and win this race or wreck trying?
Well, basically, just try to be careful, be clean, don't get into something you don't need to be, and try to run at the front most of the time. That's where most of the good drivers are.
See if Carlos has any questions here for you.
No, I really don't have. You really nailed it down there, Seth. But Bernie, man, you were pretty quiet up there. We mentioned guys like Bobby Farrell and Ronald Doucet. We didn't really mention you being one of those sleepers up there at the front whenever Ricky started to fall back. So a 3rd place run for you tonight. Before we let you go for the evening, anybody want to give a shout out to for your 3rd place run in that 90 car?
Well, sure. All you guys at Flatout Racing Network, you do a great job reporting everything. RTG for getting these races going, and I'm enjoying myself big time. So thanks again, guys.
Absolutely. Congrats on a great run here today at Daytona. That's Bernie Mobbs. He brings it home in the third position. We're now going to get a word with our runner-up finisher. Her first start of the season starts from the pole position and brings it home in the runner-up spot. Tried to go coast to coast pole to win, but certainly not a day to be ashamed of, and that is Jessica Shelton. And I have to say, just on a personal note, nice to not see that 94 FRN car flipping down into the infield grass in 3 and 4. And Jess, I mean, you got your first start here today. A lot of these guys you're familiar with over in the Talladega Challenge, but that's at Talladega. How much different is it racing with them over here at Daytona?
Well, it's Daytona. Did you really expect me to even win to begin with?
I've seen you win at Daytona before.
Yeah, but Daytona's my Achilles heel, so. But yeah, I actually had fun tonight. I don't have a problem with what happened. I was pretty much happy, and it was a lot better than what I expected based on practice, because I was a little bit squirrely in practice, and it worked out really well for me, I think.
Yeah, I want to go back to the move you made for the race lead back around 2/3 of the way through this race when you jumped down to the inside in front of Ricky. You were able to make that inside line work. Were you planning on maybe making a move similar to that if we had run those final 3 laps under green flag conditions on Despirito?
No, there was no way that was going to work. I had already checked my F2. I knew who was behind me. I knew the group. I knew the teammates. I knew who was behind them. I already had it formulated in my mind that if I made a move, I'd be going back to third. So I decided to stay where I was and just let everything fall where it went. And if Bernie made a move, I would probably try to do what I did in the All-Star race, jump out and get a bump and see what would happen. But I really was just happy with the top five regardless.
We saw a round of green flag pit stops. We were kind of wondering if we were even going to see green flag pit stops there with the early cautions, but we did see the round of green flag pit stops there nearing the end of this race. You spent most of your time up at the front. How difficult is it to put out of your mind the fact you've got other drivers behind you with different braking zones? You're coming to pit road and hoping that somebody else isn't going to be hitting you in the back when you're heading towards that commitment line.
Well, it was really annoying when you have to get down to a certain speed to get on pit run. You got a whole bunch of people trying to get down as well, which is one of the reasons why you saw there was one moment where Joe was on the high side and he was stuck on the high side and he came down in front of me when I think it was Joe, myself, and Dante running 1, 2, 3, and that was based on I told Joe he could come down because I'd rather him come down and get in line to come into pit rather than all of us run into each other, because we've had a couple of issues over in a different league regarding that issue as well. And regarding pit road itself, I mean, the way this stuff is set up tonight, you can only pit 4 times for tires. I took no tires the whole time except for the last stop where I knew I was going to take 2 cans anyway, so I took left sides. But yeah, my tires were pretty worn. I was pushing up the whole race, but I was really happy with how everyone was able to mind their p's and q's coming in pit road up near the front.
Carlos, you got anything?
Well, Jess, second place in your debut for this series. I know you ran in the Talladega Challenge, but I'm sure that has to be a really big, morale, and I wouldn't say ego, but I would say just it showed your skill tonight that you were able to run with these guys and keep it up front. I don't think you really ever fell out of the top five other than we were under green flag. So I just want to tell you, an excellent run for you tonight.
Yeah, it was a really good run for the Mountain Dew Kana-chan FRN car for Taurus. That unfortunately is a Ford, even though Seth wanted to make it a Chevy, and I know he wanted to make it a Toyota as well. But yeah, it was a really good run for me. I mean, you're talking about the ego. It's not about ego or anything, but the confident boost is there because, like I said, I was doing this as an one-off. It was Daytona. I wanted to see the difference between this track and Talladega, which wasn't really too much of a difference, except that I didn't die for once. But I was really more looking into the fact of being able to gain a little bit more trust, a little bit more respect among the other drivers out here. So, and you're talking about petting, being up in the top five. I can't tell you how many times I came into pit road to take tires over on Thursday night, only to sit there and lose spots on pit road, wondering what in the world am I doing? Why? And I find out that, oh, now I know why I'm losing, spots. It's based on certain strategy that you take regarding when you pit, and I've learned that, and to be up in the front is the best option no matter what, even if you are short on fuel or not. Things play out the way they do, and luckily it played out pretty decently for me.
Well, it definitely did, Jess. A tremendous run here tonight. Runner-up in your debut after starting from the pole and proving that the FRN car is not cursed, at least not tonight. So,
Well, not this game anyway.
not this one anyway. So, congrats on a great run. Tremendous job here in your one-off race.
We'll find out Thursday if that one's cursed too.
Right. That's Jessica Shelton. She brings it home second place here tonight at Daytona. And we're going to get a word now with our race winner down in victory lane, Joe DeSpirito. We've seen him go to victory lane over in the Talladega Challenge. He puts it in victory lane here tonight in the Winston Cup Series. And Joe, I mean, we kind of talked about your situation in the points. You've only made a limited number of starts here. Basically, I kind of figured with you having all of that success over the Talladega Challenge, the goal here today, just get up to the front, win this race.
That was the goal. Yeah, I'm not in the points, as you can see. I usually just run on Thursdays. So, yeah, it was kind of checkers or wreckers till the end there, and it happened to work out for me. I got the W.
Obviously, a lot of these drivers we mentioned race over in that Talladega Challenge, so you're pretty familiar with their racing style. But how much more different is it trying to make moves at a track like Daytona as opposed to Talladega?
Talladega's more of a driver's track for sure, especially with this mod here. It's kind of more unstable. The cars kind of move around. There's more bumps in Daytona than Talladega. And yeah, you got to definitely know when to make moves and not to bump people at the wrong times and certain things like that. So it's you got to be more cautious for sure. And you got to know where to be, like I said. So like I said, it ended up working out. Got the W, man.
We saw especially drivers that were at the tail end of the pack being able to draft really quickly back up into the lead group. So it looked like the tow and the suck up was actually really good. If those final 3 laps had run under green, did you have any kind of a plan to be able to block any lane that formulated behind you, trying to challenge you for that win?
I kind of was content being in that second line. I didn't think the bottom was very strong all night. There was one run where it kind of was, we were side by side for a while, but the third lane never came at all night long, and I just kind of was content there. And I had Jessica working with me a lot tonight, and my buddy Bernie behind her, so I kind of was content to stay there. And I don't think they were going to make any moves, so I think I would have just stayed there the rest of the race.
See if Carlos has any questions for you.
I just have to tell you, man, I said in the broadcast, you dominated the back half of that race. What was it like for you up there to be able to just keep it up there at the front? I know you had a great car, but you had great cars behind you.
Yeah, like I said, me and Jessica kind of worked together all night. It just happened to be that way. And I was kind of comfortable with the two behind me, like I said. Right at the end there, the last restart, I had a bad jump, and Dante got in front of me. And coming at two, I saw Jessica kind of creeping out of two, going high. So I kind of jumped in front of her, and Dante kind of got hang out, which kind of sucked for him, unfortunately. But yeah, we just jumped high, and then we stayed like that the rest of the race. And it was good for my buddy Bernie there. He was back in seventh before that restart, and he jumped all the way up to third. So I'm gonna have to watch the replay, see how he got up there. But yeah, it was a pretty good finish. You know, I'm glad that I won, but it would have been a lot more fun to finish on the green.
Well, we've talked to you in victory lane at Talladega. We talked to you in victory lane here tonight at Daytona. We're going to do some shout outs now, Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna shout out my Florida boys, APWU Racing, Mobs Motors. I'm gonna shout out Bernie, Bob Seminara, FTMF, everybody here at RTG. You guys were putting on a good show, always on Thursdays, Tuesdays, and just thank everybody watching at home. I appreciate the broadcast. Thanks, guys.
That's Joe DeSpirito. He visits victory lane here tonight at the World Center of Racing, taking the checkered flag here this evening in the Winston Cup Series. Looking here as far as the point standings heading into the next race, which I believe is going to be from New Hampshire. Dante Ricci, this actually was a good run for him, despite him not being up at the front at the end like he was most of the race. 8th place run. You look at some of the other guys that were trying to hunt him down. Terry Bombard finished in 11th, so he didn't gain any points. Jeremy Jeffries wasn't in the race. Dave Melson had struggles. So really the only guy he had to worry about here tonight to gain points on him were Bernie Mobbs and Mitch Bombard. Both of them were 95 and 102 points back. So, while I'm certain that Dante Ricci would have loved to have kept his car up where it was, up inside the top 3 where it was most of the day, I don't think he'll be that disappointed looking at the big picture, knowing that he's been able to kind of gap himself a little bit further for that championship.
No, he shouldn't be disappointed despite finishing 8th after being top 5 most of the night. He looks like he's still in a good spot to be able to be contending going forward.
Well, like I said, Carlos, tonight we saw a little bit of everything. We saw some cautions, not necessarily the big one, but we saw some pretty wild wrecks. We saw some cars get airborne. We saw a couple barrel rolls. We even got to see a round of green flag pit stops here. I think a very typical Daytona race. And unfortunately, as we said, we didn't get to see this race finish under green, but sometimes that happens here in these super speedway races. You kind of expect it that drivers are going to push it up to 11 there when it gets to the closing stages of the race.
Yeah, you always love to see a race finish under the green flag, but that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But it ended up working out for Joe DeSpirito. He picked up the win, and he's definitely going to have momentum going forward.
Definitely is. So, Chaco, one other win up there for the Florida boys as Joe DeSpirito takes the checkered flag here tonight at Daytona. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to tonight's race. We hope that you enjoyed our coverage from Daytona here in the Winston Cup Series. Carlos, as always, appreciate you having you here with me tonight in the commentators booth.
Yeah, no, when you messaged me at about 10 o'clock this morning, I was like, wasn't expecting to work today, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great race. Again, congratulations to Joe DeSpirito for picking up the win. It's always a pleasure to be here with you in the booth, Seth. It's great to be back here at FRN.
Absolutely. So again, thank you to everybody that tuned into this evening's race. We hope you enjoyed it. I believe we do have another Tuesday night race that's going to be coming up at some point. We will, keep it onto our Facebook page where you'll be notified of dates that are coming up. Subscribe here to the YouTube channel as well to get notified when races are scheduled and are going to be taking place that night. But again, for Carlos Zimmerman, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in here tonight to the RTG Winston Cup Series. Joe DeSpirito, your winner at Daytona, as you've been watching another broadcast here tonight, courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.